Hello everybody, it's David France here. So I want to do a video today on owning versus controlling. So owning a property versus controlling a property. The differences here is if you own a property, whether you've got a mortgage on it or it's in your personal name or you own it outright with cash, on the title register at land registry it will have your name as a proprietor. However, if you control somebody's property, whether it's a rent-to-rent deal, a lease option deal, an exchange with delayed completion, something along those lines, you are controlling somebody's property. Now, I've heard people say in the past, quite a few people say this, and it's a misconception, and a lot of people who are inexperienced with some of the creative sides of property certainly have this mindset. So some people think if you don't own it or your name's not on the down as a proprietor of that property at land registry, then they don't want to know. They don't want to get involved with it because they don't see it as a asset. And that is completely the wrong attitude. Whether you own it or you control it, they're both exactly the same in terms of the outcome. So the outcome is you control a property or you own it, so it makes money. So it puts money in your pocket every month after expenses like mortgage payments and insurance, etc. Okay, so if you own it, it's exactly the same. If you have a mortgage on it or you own it with cash, it's exactly the same. Yeah, after you rent the property out, after any costs, you've got that money in your pocket, and it's the same if you control it. Because the only thing that's different is the paperwork with controlling it means you are legally tying up this property so the seller can't do anything with it. I'm talking about lease options here, and you can't, or an exchange of delayed completion, the owner just can't just sell it on. The best part about controlling versus owning is the liability as well. The debt's not in your name if you're controlling it. So I significantly prefer controlling property versus owning it. Not to saying that I don't have any assets in my name. I do have assets in my name. I think it's good to balance your portfolio, but I love to control properties because the entry costs are significantly lower and the risks are significantly lower. Interest rates go through the roof, or something catastrophic happens. If you're controlling somebody's property with paperwork, then the risk and liability is significantly less on yourself as an investor, whereas the outcome's exactly the same as if you were to own it yourself anyway, because you're getting the monthly cash flow from passive income and also capital appreciation in the future. So they're the clear differences between owning versus controlling, and I want to clear this myth up that people seem to think if you control something and your name's not down as a proprietor, it's irrelevant. Because when you control something, as long as you understand the legal process and how these deals are tied up, you'll never be concerned about owning it versus controlling it, and you'll actually prefer to control it. Because at land registry, you can actually, when you control the assets, you can actually lodge the paperwork that makes it all legally secure and binding at land registry. So when somebody searches on land registry, okay, somebody else will be the proprietor, but you'll have a restriction on the title in your name or your company's name, depending on how you're structuring it. So it's very important to remember that owning versus controlling, the differences, and the liability is significantly less if you're controlling the asset. Now, also, if there's mortgage companies involved, if you're buying a property with a mortgage or you're controlling it and somebody else has a mortgage on it, you don't own it anyway. Whether it's in your name or not, the banks own it. The banks own, at least in most cases, 75 to 80% of that property anyway. You've put a deposit in if you so-called owning it. So get out of this ownership versus controlling mindset and go out there and get these deals. It's all down to the outcome. Does this property put cash in your pocket after all expenses every month? Does it give you the chance to make capital appreciation? Is the asset there? Because with controlling these properties, certainly on a lease option perspective, you've agreed a fixed purchase price, and if the house prices go up and you make a capital gain, you can buy the property. If it goes down, You don't have to buy it. A lease option is a right to buy and not the obligation. So I've covered that in quite some detail there, getting your head around this owning versus controlling. And some of the real big people like Donald Trump, for example, they do this on a much larger scale. They do lease options and controlling properties on hotels, big land developments. That's very common with some big players like that. So that's how some of these people understand controlling versus owning. And it's very important you understand the clear difference so you can grow in 2019 and beyond. So start acquiring these assets and cash flowing assets. And I'm not saying you don't have to buy any. It's certainly a good idea to buy them in your name. But what we're doing, we're controlling a lot of properties, and when the time's right, we're buying them and deciding which ones to buy and which ones not to buy. As long as they put money in our pocket every month after all expenses, we're going to take them, whether we're owning them or controlling them. But the difference is with the controlling them, like I said before, you don't have to put a massive amount of money down. Usually you're not having to put deposits down, pay for valuations, things like that. It's literally just legal paperwork, tying them up and cash flowing them, working with motivated sellers. So I hope this video has helped clear that up, and you've got a much clearer understanding now of owning versus controlling.